Vince Graham of the State Infrastructure Bank says they may withdraw from the 526 plan. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down with Dana Beach of the Coastal Conservation League. Dana, it is so good to see you again.
Thank you, Quintin. It's always good to see you.
I appreciate this. Well, I emailed you last night because we have some breaking news. According to the headline from Channel 5, it says this: Chairman, SIB Board likely to withdraw from I-526 extension project. I know that you have the letter here on your particular laptop. When you received that letter, what was going to your mind?
Well, the letter was a response, as you know, to a letter from Chairman Elliott Summey, County Council Chairman Elliott Summey, and Mayor John Tecklenburg, proposing a deal basically to, very complicated, shift $150 million from half-cent sales tax money to build overpasses in North Charleston. And I should say, that project had not even been mentioned by council. It was not brought up in any public hearing, and it was a unilateral proposal on the part of Elliott Summey to just take the money and run, so to speak. But they proposed that if they did that the SIB should give them the $420 million back that they were proposing to shift elsewhere. And you remember the SIB, of course, said we have gone on too long on the project, nothing's happened, there's too much divisiveness, there's a huge $300 million cost overrun, and so we really just have to do something with the money. We've got $420 million that's been tied up for a decade, And so basically the chairman of the board of the SIB, Vince Graham, responded to the deal proposal and said no deal. He said we're not interested for a variety of reasons that are all very solid, legitimate, and legally well-founded reasons. The way that project was originally sold was, as you know, was a bridge from the existing terminus of 526 to Johns Island, and then across to James Island again, twice across the Stono, and then across James Island to connect with the James Island connector. And the purpose and need of the project was defined as relieving traffic congestion, West Ashley, that sort of thing. It was not defined as hurricane evacuation for Johns Island. Arguably, it wouldn't provide that, but it wasn't defined that way. And so what the county council, or at least Elliott Summey has discussed doing, was building just a piece of the project. And in the letter, Chairman Graham said, it's not the same project. Right. And he quoted an earlier letter from Buck Limehouse, who at the time was the department head of the DOT, saying if they come back with with just one leg, it's got to be viewed as a separate project and the process needs to start over. And that's the bottom line on this, is that we've come so far away from what was originally proposed. There have been so many ideas thrown out there that one, the environmental impact statement is already out of date, even if they didn't change the project. But if they do change it, it's got to be reinitiated. So the short story is there's not enough money to build it still. Even if the SIB gave them the 420 back, they don't have the 300 that they need to cover it. Now, I will also say that Elliott told 3 county council members that Hugh Leatherman was going to give them another $300 million. And so they didn't need to worry about that. But then when he was asked about that statement, he denied making it, even though Dickie Schweers, Colleen Condon, and Teddy Pryor said he had made it. So the point, I guess, that I would take away from this is the most boxed up, confused, poor example of transparent leadership that we've had in a long time, and we've had some bad examples of it. But we are taking the future of Charleston and this region and sort of flushing it down the toilet because of this obsession with 526. And we've talked about this before. We've got so many things we need to do here. We have roads that need to be repaired. There was an article in the paper today about the improvements to the existing 526.
Right.
Including that intersection at I-26 and 526,
Right.
which badly needs to be upgraded. Those are pressing, real needs. We're not funding those because the political sort of line on this thing is, well, we'll just get 526 extended and everybody will be in great shape. Well, the reality is vastly different from that. We don't. It's a $750 million project, as Chairman Graham said, the most expensive highway project ever built in the state of South Carolina, it would be. The most expensive for 8 miles of road. It will not solve the problem. So, we've always said, and we've said this now for a decade, let's take the money, reprogram it, do things that need to be done, can be done right away. Flyover at 17 in Main Road, improving Main Road, improving the Maybank and River intersection, which is already funded. And to the testimony to the incompetence of the county, funded 5 years ago, has not been built. The pitchfork that would distribute traffic more effectively at the intersection of River and Maybank. And that's where the choke point is. It's not getting to the island generally, it's getting onto the streets on the island, which are not really adequate to carry the traffic on the island. But it's not funneling more and more people to the island, which is what 526 would do. And then there's the bus rapid transit system. I mean, we're a region now approaching 750,000 people. We desperately need to be thinking like a mature metropolitan region. We're not a little backwater anymore. And every legitimate metropolitan region has a good transit system. Well, not every one, but many of them do. And ours is terrible. Even the current one is terrible. And what we need to do is beef that up and also invest in the BRT, which is a precursor to light rail.
Right.
Ultimately, we need light rail. The irony of this whole thing has always been to me this. Elliott Summey's from North Charleston. He represents North Charleston. The single most impressive, important, progressive thing that could be done for North Charleston and for our region as a whole is to rally around a bus rapid transit system, light rail system that eventually will spur redevelopment in areas in North Charleston that are blighted at intersections of Montague and Dorchester Road and Ashley Phosphate, where we want and need new, good, high-quality development, and it will come because we've seen this happen in other regions like Portland, Oregon, and Charlotte. In Charlotte, right? I mean, we have to go 3 hours up the road. So he's impoverishing his own constituents by maintaining this fiction that we can build 526 and we can do everything else.
What is fact in your mind? What's the fact in your mind? You say fiction, what is it? What's the fact?
Well, the fact is that transportation there's no silver bullet for transportation. Great transportation systems are built one piece at a time.
Sure.
People who are honest about that know that and tell their constituents that. It's not build 526, everything will be fine. It's not spend $750 million on one project. It's knitting together the road network so that it functions better. It's dealing with people who walk and bike, also making it possible for them to do to get around. It's substantially improving the transit system. It's all of those things. And we don't have the leadership to promote those changes. We simply we are at gridlock. And I guess I'm an optimist, but I have to say I'm losing my optimism about this because it is so obvious and so clear what is going on, and yet the response from the leadership is abysmal.
Wow. Let me turn to the letter again, because Graham said he would actually be willing to meet with Mayor John Teckenberg and Chairman Elliott Summit, I guess yesterday or even today, Tuesday, to discuss the situation. When those three meet in the room, what do you want them to sit down and talk about?
Well, I'd like them to be honest, first of all,
Okay.
with each other, and talk about what can and can't be done, and not posture. The problem is Elliott, every time he sits down with somebody, he tells a different story. And he's told us one thing, and then he's done another, and he's told other groups a separate story. He's told Mayor Teckenberg a third story. So first, be honest about it. What do you actually want? What do you want to do? Let's face the reality of what will make this region successful.
Okay.
We've got Volvo obviously coming in. Boeing is continuing to expand their traffic up there in North Charleston. The real traffic problem is on I-26. I mean, 17 is not free-flowing by any means, but things can be done on that road and on Folly Road. Improving transit, turn lanes, timing lights, all sorts of things, and connections that are internal.
Right.
Those things can be done, and they can be done for vastly less money. So I would like to have them sit down and honestly talk about real solutions that aren't ribbon-cutting opportunities, that aren't political posturing. And what I have seen so far is that Chairman Vince Graham has offered to do that. But every time he sits down with Elliott Summey, he gets a new spin on things, a new story. It's not, he's not getting the real truth out of the meeting. And so, I don't understand, frankly, why anybody would want to serve in government if all you were doing was trying to maintain your elected position. If he is so concerned about Elliott, about honestly admitting what can and can't be done and what needs to be done, that he might not be voted back into office, then he just needs to accept that reality and be, and I frankly think this era is a strange time in political history. There is more lying going on than there's ever been at the national level and at the local level and at the state levels. I mean, it's not just us. We're not unique or even unusual, frankly and sadly. But we've got to get over that and be mature adults and lead and put together a vision for the future that we can implement, not some pie in the sky thing.
When did politics creep into the 526 project in your mind?
Politics have been a part of it since the beginning, and they started with Bobby Harrell. I mean, he was the one who really got the project going when he and Senator McConnell were in the leadership positions in the House and the Senate, respectively. They basically said that we want this project, which is not a priority in the region, never has been. It's not on the state's priority list. We want this project to be a priority for funding. Well, it wasn't, because there wasn't enough money and the state transportation improvement plan didn't include it, and for a lot of reasons it wasn't. But then when the State Infrastructure Bank was created in '97, it was created classic South Carolina. The Speaker of the House gets 2 appointments to the board. The President of the Senate gets 2 appointments to the board. That's a majority out of 7 board members. So those 2 people, who represent 2.7% of the voters in South Carolina, control 100% of the money, which is not a good way to run a government. So they began to promote it through in their own way, and also through their representatives on the board, Rick Tapp, for example. And when the county said, look, we don't want to build a project, Senator McConnell's appointee, Rick Tapp, wrote a letter and said, we're going to sue you. If you don't build this project, we're going to sue you. Now, this completely changed the dynamic of what the SIB was supposed to be. It was supposed to be an entity that supported local government's goals and provided funding and borrowing capacity to do that. But when the SIB became essentially a project advocate because of Bobby Harrell and Senator McConnell and his appointee Rick Tapp, that was when the politics really got bad. And there was a lot of backroom deal making going on there, and letters being sent out on behalf of the SIB that didn't really represent the actual board consensus. Rick was the secretary at the time of the SIB. I wasn't even the chairman. So anyway, it's been political. You know, actually politics has been in highway building probably as long as we've been building highways. In the 70s, I guess it was, the Thrift Brothers were a construction company in the upstate, and they were caught handing a brown paper bag full of money to somebody on a golf course, you know. So that was how we built roads. And the reason we have 44,000 miles of state roads in South Carolina, which is the fourth biggest road system in America, is that the legislature wanted control. And so if you wanted a road to your new shop subdivision or your new strip mall, then you would go to your representative, state representative, and he or she would say, well, I'll put it in the budget. Usually it's he. They put a line item in the budget. And nobody would know it was there except for the budget writer and the head of the Senate Finance Committee and the House Ways and Means Committee. And so we ended up, instead of doing what we should have done, which is had local governments take responsibility for the local road system and street system, we ended up with the state running the show. And the state basically built things that, one, didn't need to be built, didn't maintain what already existed, wanted to make sure they could deliver these plums, these political plums. That's how they stayed in power. So the whole thing, it goes way back. I guess what I'm saying is that political manipulation of highway money is a phenomenon that has been around for a long time. And one reason is, you know, they asked Willie Sutton why he robbed banks. He said that's where the money is. Well, as I've said, you know, there's not a whole lot of competition to get on the DHEC board. You know, there's not really that much enthusiasm for being on a board that regulates hospitals. I mean, a little bit, but not too much. Everybody wants to be on the DOT board because that's where the money is. And the politicians make sure that they have people on the board who are compliant with what they want to do so that they can control it, and which is what they do. So they control the DOT board by appointing the members, and each district appoints a member. They control the SIB, but at least with the DOT board, you've got legislative delegations appointing the members, which is not a great idea, but it's better than having the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate appoint the majority of the members, which they do with the SIB. And the SIB has spent, you know, billions of dollars over the course of its existence since '97, almost 20 years. And a lot of that money has gone to pet projects. So why is South Carolina in bad shape on road funding? Why do we have roads that have big potholes? Why is it that we are going to have to rebuild I-26 instead of just repairing it because we've waited too long? Because the legislature has been using the highway funding, both sources, as a slush fund to gain for political patronage. And that is exactly what's going on with 526.
We have two important cases coming up soon here in South Carolina. Will the 526 case end up in court?
It's not going to get that far. You know, at this point, they haven't even finished the permitting. They haven't even finished the environmental impact statement, and it's so old that they've got to restart it. So I don't think it will ever go to court because it simply isn't going to get that far. And the Federal Highway Administration, as Chairman Graham notes, has said you have to have a reasonable certainty of being able to pay for the project. Well, they don't. the county doesn't know where the other $300 million will come from. So there's no reasonable certainty, and therefore FHA is unlikely to sign off on it. All of this stuff I've been saying
Right.
is known by Elliott Summey, John Tecklenburg, Vince Graham. The leaders know this, but the political, the elected officials aren't telling the public the truth. That's the problem.
Okay. Well, Dana Beach, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
Well, I'm happy to do it, and thank you for covering it. It's a very complicated issue, Quintin, and I think you've done a great job in trying to keep your listeners and viewers up to date on it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good interview.
All right.
Thank you.